Hello everyone, it's Geek Girl back with another video. I know it's been a minute, but I've been thinking about you often. I've been thinking about updating this channel often. I say you, just viewers in general. I have lots of things I wanted to share. I've just been a little bit busy, but today I am feeling up to do another video, so I'm going to talk about one of my new pets. And I know I've talked about some interesting things like Agla in the past and some of my cool new rice fish. Today I want to talk about something a little bit different, even from all of that, but it does have a backbone. So I got myself a group of Pipa, otherwise known as the Suriname toad. And if you haven't seen these frogs before, they're probably going to blow your mind. Tryptophobia warning, they do release babies from their back, like little holes on their back. I haven't seen it firsthand because mine have not bred or had babies yet and did not come in gravid. But I got myself a group of 6. I'm hoping males and females. I had a couple of them for a little while and got some experience for about a year with them, just the 2, and decided I wanted to get a bigger group and try to breed them eventually. So yeah, I got myself some probably sub-adult, close to adult Suriname toads. And actually the name toad is a little misleading because they're not true toads. They're in the family Pipidae, which is actually the same as Xenopus, and which are your clawed frogs, and your dwarf African frogs are actually all in that same family, which are known as the tongueless frogs. They're a very primitive group of frogs, and these guys are largely aquatic. So Pipa, even though it's a frog, is an aquatic frog, and actually a really cool one. And a little more common than one of the ones I used to work with. I used to work with Pipa parva, or Pipa parva. I pronounced it both ways. That's a smaller species. I successfully reproduced that one when I used to work for a company that had them. So since then I've been like, I want to try again. Pipa parva, so they incubate their eggs in their back, and that's what the Suriname toad is known for, right? But the parva are smaller, and they don't incubate them as long. My cat's being a psycho in the background. They don't incubate them as long, so they come out as tadpoles and filter feeding ones at that, kind of like your Xenopus. And your Xenopus hatch out as filter feeding tadpoles. So I'd feed them with like ceramicron and things like that. Had great success with them. Loved them. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try the bigger species, because like the parva got about 2 inches or so, and then these guys, the Pipa I'm going to show you soon, are about 6 inches or so, 6 to 7 inches full grown. So they are honestly, even for their genus, just a very unique looking frog because they're very flat. I had parva, they were not nearly as flat. Pipa, they are very, very compressed. You might call it, well, they're very, they're flat boys, right? They're flat boys. They're very compressed. They actually try to look like dead leaves oftentimes. They live amongst the leaf litter, and they're ambush predators. So they blend in with the leaves. They live in like the swampy areas and the waterways, the sluggish waters, and they blend in with the leaves. They hide under, and then they have these really crazy long fingers with these really sensitive fingertips and like a little kind of a sensitive mouth area, but the fingers are usually how they feel. And I'm going to highlight that too, because that, compared with how flat they are, compared with like almost like this weird stitching looking marking down their stomach, they remind me of like almost a Frankenstein animal, or like a some sort of weird monster. They don't seem real. Sorry about that. My cat was definitely being full psycho and knocked into me. So for whatever reason, he really gets amped up when I do these videos. I think he knows what I'm doing here, you guys. And yeah, life with a Bengal. It's great. I swear in a future house I'm gonna have a room, and he's just gonna have to deal. So anyway, Pipa, I also call them affectionately frog monsters because of their crazy long fingers, how flat they are, and they're just the little teeny beady eyes and the weird like markings on them, and they look like something that wouldn't be of this earth, and I love them. They are actually a very, very easy to keep aquatic frog. Pretty much not fussy at all. They'll eat anything you drop in front of their face. At first, I recommend doing night crawlers. So a lot of times they are fresh imports, wild caught. So a lot of times I will do night crawlers just straight up for them. They love it. You can migrate from that to frozen chunks of squid or krill, but they are pretty big frogs, so you want like big, meatier food. I've never really done pellets with them. I've always done frozen or worms because worms are so accessible. And then I've done rosy reds on occasion too. So when I first get them in fresh from the wild, I try to do live foods like the worms and the rosies, and then wean them onto the more frozen and still keep up with the worms. Rosies I don't recommend all the time. They have parasites and things, not the healthiest option. So yeah, but they will eat other fish and things. So you definitely don't want to keep them with any other animals. No, don't do it. They'll eat any fish. Any fish that goes in front of their face is going in their mouth. So they're not going to be community friendly by any means. They can be amongst each other as long as they're not small enough to swallow each other. If you were fortunate to get a gravid female that she comes in with the babies in her back and they release under your care, I'd probably remove them, because beyond her brooding them in her back, they are not going to take care of them. So they do what's called direct development, which means that they the eggs will hatch and turn directly into little froglets, and then the way that they maneuver and do their breeding and stuff, the eggs get pushed onto the back of the female, and then her skin envelops them. And then once the incubation period is over, I don't know exactly what it is for these guys, in a month or so, they'll come poking out of her back. But once they're out, all bets off. I mean, she'd probably eat them in a heartbeat. I'm guessing. I've never had that experience. I want to replicate it. I want to see it. I want to experience it because they're just such a cool frog. So I got myself a group. I went ahead and, I said they only imported every so often, maybe a few times a year. So I just went ahead and sprung for 6 of them, because when you get fish, you want at least 6 to get both sexes. I think the first time I went around with these guys, I think I had 2 females. And the reason I say that is because I never heard any clicking. And supposedly, when these guys are ready to breed, the males make a clicking sound that they emit that's audible to the human ear. You could hear it. And I never heard it. But they do that to attract the females and do their thing. So supposedly you need like a larger, taller tank volume to get them to do their maneuvers and successfully breed in captivity. It's not often done. I'm not sure if it's because people just don't keep very many of them very often. They kind of end up at reptile expos here and there. They're almost never at fish stores, which is unfortunate, because reptile expos, I think you're setting them up for failure. And I have a whole talk dedicated to this, but when it comes to reptile expos, you're catering mostly to people who are familiar with animals that live terrestrially. The problem is a lot of these amphibians and stuff, these newts and certain caecilians and axolotls and frogs, aquatic frogs, even semi-aquatic frogs, like, they live more in aquariums, which means your aquarist is going to be better equipped to take care of them. So when you're selling them in cups at an expo to a reptile hobbyist, they're probably not going to know what they're doing. They won't cycle their tanks. It won't go well. I do use a heater. So how I have these guys set up right now, I use a cycled sponge. I have 6 of them right now and about 30 gallons at QT, but I'm going to split them up probably 2 to 3 per 30 gallons. This seems like not a lot of space because they're a big frog and it's kind of a small tank, but the thing is, they don't move very much. They spend most of their life sitting very, very, very still. I use a sponge filter because they don't like a lot of movement, and I keep them about 80 degrees. They don't need to be terribly hot, at least like mid-70s. So I lost my first 2 to a heater malfunction, so that's why I'm a little bit wary right now this time around. I got a brand new heater, went with a good brand, Eheim, which is a pretty solid company. That being said, when we're dealing with heaters, replace them every few years, even if they're a good, reliable heater, just do it. Check them frequently. Make sure you're keeping tabs on the temps because, yeah, it cooks your animals and it's no good. So yeah, I keep a glass top to cut down evaporation, and I don't find that they're very jumpy, but just in case you want to probably keep them covered. They don't seem to go much up and out of the water if you leave a good gap. They seem like they're pretty happy in there, but I don't trust that fully. Like, frogs are frogs, so just cover them. And I feed them every few days. I feed them night crawlers and do weekly water changes of at least 25 to 50%. And yeah, I leaf litter. Bare bottom, leaf litter. Because I like to blend out the leaves. I find it very, very beneficial. It'll turn your water a little more acidic and makes their frog happier and makes them, they get to hide under something. They really like it. If you did do a substrate, probably a sand, because like most amphibians, it's said that when they gulp their food, they're tongueless frogs, so they can't spit out anything that gets stuck in their mouth. So they're kind of, yeah. So, supposedly they can have impactions and die. Yeah, all that fun stuff. So, I'm going to go downstairs. Further ado, I'm going to flip this camera around. I'm going to show you some of my cool new frogs. Okay, guys. Here is my Pipa tank. Believe it or not, there are 6 of them flat boys in here. There's one very active at the moment. You can see here, just looking at this guy up front, look at those fingers. Quite long, have almost like a star tip to the top of tips of them. This is very common amongst the genus. The genus is about 7 described species right now. So yeah, I noticed the parva had little stars on the ends of their fingers too. These guys are a little skinny still. I've only had them for a few weeks. They're kind of a still fresh import. You can see they have very tiny eyes, kind of a flat profile in general, and they will go under the leaf litter and almost disappear, and actually most of them have done that. I have it about 80 degrees, like I said. That's about where I've been keeping them. I have a sponge filter from an established tank, and I have been feeding them earthworms. I'm thinking about mixing it up with some frozen soon. You can see here, there's that weird kind of line going down the belly. This is why I call them my frog monsters. These guys are being very, very excited because they know food's coming, most likely. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some worms, and then I'm gonna show you guys some of their feeding. So, okay, we have a fistful of worms. Quite frankly, I don't really even rinse them that much. It's just your typical bait shop worms. A little dirt doesn't seem to bother them. They haven't died yet. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, they've been fine. They eat these things whole. It's crazy because they can fill up on worms and still look just as slim. The Drapo. There you go, buddy. And as soon as they feel it kind of like hit their face, yep, in it goes. These guys were feeding for me from day one. Like literally fresh import, got them to my house, got them in this tank, and they were feeding. These, I cannot emphasize enough. These are very hardy frogs. If you know how to keep aquariums and you set them up correctly, and your heater, as long as your heater doesn't fail, you will almost never kill these guys. They are remarkably hardy. And of course, assuming that they come in and they're not like complete skeletons and you're able to get them feeding. If they are feeding for you from day one, that is a good sign. You've got some hardy frogs. Yeah. So, yeah. These flat boys. I hope there's some boys this time. There better be. I know the guy who imported them for me is like, oh, I have one more I could get ya. this tank is pretty maxed out. I need to split these guys up as it is. I've just been doing QTing them. So one thing I will say, being that they are aquatic amphibians, or just amphibians in general, whenever you get wild-caught amphibians, you want to quarantine them for at least 2 months if you're not swabbing them, because that's about the incubation period for chytrid. Rana is another story. If they have Rana virus, you might not know for a while, but I'd say at least 2 months. And then make sure that you're using separate siphons and equipment for their tank. So I have axolotls down here too, so I'm just being very, very cautious with these guys, not to cross-contaminate. I'm not feeding worms from these guys. I like my hands right now, I'm going to open wash them, but I'm not going to grab worms, feed these guys, and grab worms and feed my axolotls. It's mostly spread through water contact or direct contact, but it's still, you know, good practice. I will sometimes wear gloves too. If I know I'm going to be maintaining both of them the same day, I'll change out gloves, wash my hands between. Not a bad idea. So, yeah. So these are my frog monsters. Get one more little close-up on one of these guys. Actually, oh, there we go. And they do, of course, breathe air. So about all they do all day is sit, wait for food, go up and gulp air. That's a pretty good life, isn't it? Hopefully breed eventually, because I'd love to see some babies. So, yeah. So, hey guys, hands a little dirty here, was just grabbing worms. I wanted to real quick just say thank you guys for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and hopefully next week or next couple weeks, I'm trying to be more regular, but hopefully I'll be posting again soon, and I'll see you next time.